identify him. Just write your address down here, will ya? How many apartments are there in this house, Mrs. Hendricks?
Only two, just this one and the one upstairs.
You say he was waving something in his hand, Mr. Talman?
Yeah, it looks like a little leather notebook. That's my address.
Excuse me, Mrs. Hendricks, it's a little dark in here. This your permanent address, Mr. Talman?
Yes, it is.
Well, I won't bother you anymore. And don't worry, Mrs. Hendricks. If your husband does find anything missing, he'll let me know, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, yes he will. Thanks for coming so quickly.
Oh, you're entirely welcome.
Hello? Yes, just a second, please. Sergeant Carlino?
I'll get him. Hey, Sergeant Carlino, you're wanted on the phone.
Sorry, Mrs. Hendricks, this is gonna be one of those days. Thank you. Carlino. Yes, Lieutenant. You mean he just walked in? A doll? Have you told him yet? Give me a few minutes. Sure, I understand.
Did they find that old man?
Mrs. Hendricks, maybe I should mention one thing while I'm here. I didn't want to alarm you, but a woman was found just outside here this morning.
Yes, I know.
You say you knew her?
Oh, no, I only heard it on the radio.
Oh, I see. Your husband didn't know by any chance.
Of course not.
I'm sorry, Mr. Talman, but we've been told to make inquiries. Did you hear anything peculiar last night, Mrs. Hendricks?
No, but we were out most of the evening.
Oh, I see. And you and Mr. Hendricks were together all evening, I suppose.
No, I went to a movie for about an hour while he worked in the studio.
Was anyone else with her?
Hey, what is
No,
this?
he was supposed to have photographed someone, but she never turned up.
Are you questioning Mrs. Hendricks for any particular reason?
I'm not questioning her, Mr. Talman.
Then why are you taking notes?
I'm not taking notes. I am only checking to see...
What?
If there's anything else I did want to ask.
Well, if there is, I suggest you wait until Mr. Hendricks gets home.
Now look, I am allowed to talk, aren't I?
Talk, yes, but Mrs. Hendricks doesn't have to answer any questions if she doesn't want to. And if they didn't teach you that in police school, read the Constitution.
Okay then, no more questions.
Hey, did they ever find that old man?
Mr. Talman,
Yes.
You're not a lawyer by any chance.
No, I'm not.
No, I didn't think you were.
Fat lot of help he is. That old man could be in New Jersey by now.
Mike, is this room very dirty?
No, why?
Well, that sergeant kept dusting everywhere. Didn't you notice?
Did he?
It was all around that refrigerator and in this corner.
Oh, I'll get it. That's probably him. He's probably thought of some more silly questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hunt?
No, Mr. and Mrs. Hendricks live here.
Hendricks? Oh, I beg your pardon, but this is 27B Grogan Street?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Hendricks, my name is Rote, Harry Rote Jr. May I ask if an elderly gentleman dropped by today?
Well, I don't know if he exactly dropped by.
Mr. Hendricks, if I may come in for just a moment. You see, that was my father.
Well, yes, please come in.
Thank you.
Mr. Rote, Miss Hendricks is blind.
Oh, I understand. Thank you.
Mike?
You okay?
Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Rote.
I'm so very sorry this happened, Mrs. Hendricks. I do hope my father wasn't rude in any way.
Well, he opened all the drawers in the bedroom. Is that rude, do you think?
Oh, my goodness. But let me reassure you, it's not as serious a matter as you may think, Mr. Hendricks.
My name is Talman. Mr. Hendricks is a friend of mine.
Mr. Talman, my father may appear a bit erratic, but I assure you he would never
harm anyone?
Oh, certainly not.
Well, he was just telling Mrs. Hendricks.
Gloria?
It's only groceries. I'll come back later.
Oh, no, you can leave him now if you like.
What did my father say?
He said that if somebody didn't leave some woman alone, he was going to kill him.
Did he mention the name Sam Hunt by any chance?
Yes, I believe he did.
Then I can explain all this quite easily. You see, my father came here because he believes your husband is a photographer named Sam Hunt.
Oh, well, as you can see, my husband is a photographer, but we can clear this up right away. Mike, there's a picture of Sam and me on the dresser, a wedding photograph.
Oh, I'm afraid that won't do me any good. You see, I've never seen this man.
Oh, who is it anyway?
A few years ago, my wife was on vacation in Montreal, and my father tells me that while she was there, she and this man became acquainted.
So your wife meets some man 3 years ago, and now your father threatens to kill him. For what?
My father alleges that my wife and this man still see each other from time to time. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mrs. Hendricks, I really must find my father.
Mr. Rowe, before you go, there's one thing I don't quite understand. How did you find this address? Did you follow your father here today?
In a way, yes, I did.
But then you were waiting outside the whole time he was here? Why didn't you stop him?
I didn't follow him here exactly.
How exactly did you find the address?
I didn't want to have to tell you this.
Please tell us.
I believe my father followed my wife to this apartment.
When?
Last Sunday. He invited us to dinner at his club, and my wife arrived late and announced that she couldn't stay, that she had to call on a friend who was flying to Montreal the next day and to give him something. My father became rather testy and wanted to know his name and what it was she had to give him, and finally she became annoyed and said, "Well, if you must know, it's that doll of mine that you broke." And then she got up and left.
The doll, you said.
Yes, a musical doll.
Was it?
Yes.
And you say Mrs. Rowe was going to give it to a friend who was going to Canada.
Yes.
Well, why would she need to do that?
Well, because you see, this doll wasn't just a toy. No, it was made especially for her in Montreal. It played a little tune that was a favorite of hers. It's her friend said that he would take it to the makers in Montreal and have it fixed and bring it back to her. That night when she walked out on us, my father said, "It's that doll Sam Hunt gave her." Then he followed her. The next morning, I found this note underneath my door. It simply says, "Dear Harry, Sam Hunt lives at 27B Grogan Street in Greenwich Village. Dad." And then this morning, when I told him that Luciana hadn't come home last night.
Who didn't come home?
Luciana, my wife. But she frequently comes into Manhattan and decides to stay with friends. But she usually phones to say where she is, but so far we haven't heard anything.
Shall I get it, Susie? Hello? Yes, hold on one moment. Susie, it's Sergeant Carlino. He wants to speak to you.
What does he want?
I really must be going.
Can I take a message? Yes, I can. Hold on a moment. He's here. Mr. Rowe, don't go. Sorry, the police. They want to speak to you.
No, tell them I've already left.
No, but it's about your wife.
What?
And your father has just walked into the station.
Hello? Speaking. That's right. No, she didn't, but... Is she hurt? No. Tell me now.
Mr. Rote! Mr. Rote!
Mike, don't go!
No, of course not. He left the door open. Well, that is some family, those Rotes. Seems the old man just walked into the police station. Seems Mrs. Rote has been in some kind of an accident.
She's dead.
What?
She was murdered just outside here last night.
You knew that the whole time he was here?
I only just realized when he was on the phone just now, the sergeant must have told him. It was on the radio, but I only heard the end of it. I wasn't listening properly. Mike, could you phone the Asbury bus station and ask them to have Sam call me immediately?
Of course, Susie, but look, you can't worry about anything that old man might say. He's obviously nuts.
But there's something you don't know, Mike. Sam did bring a child's doll back home from Canada.
It can't be the same doll.
Exactly as the one he described just now. I was helping him unpack, and the doll must have fallen on the floor because it played a few notes. So I picked it up and said, "Oh, surprise." Something like that. I thought it was for me. But Sam said no. He said it was for a little girl who was in a hospital. Some woman that he met at the airport in Montreal had asked him to bring it here for her. Someone he said he'd never met before.
So, Sam took the doll to the hospital?
No, that woman, it must have been Mrs. Rote. She came here late that night to pick it up, but Sam couldn't find it. It must still be here someplace. And that Italian woman who didn't show up last night, Luciana, that was Mrs. Rote too.
Susie, you can't get all worked up over this. So what if Sam does know this woman? That's not that suspicious.
Mike, there's a picture of Sam and me on the dresser. It's a wedding photograph in a leather frame.
No, there's no photograph. That must be what the old man took when he left the apartment. I'll phone the police.
No, we mustn't say anything to the police. That sergeant mentioned a doll when he was on the phone, don't you remember? And all those questions about where Sam was last night and the lady who was murdered. They must think he's killed her.
Susie, there's a police car up the street. They're watching this house.